questions related to that? Last time we discussed political economy theory, which says that those who are economically powerful, they can maintain social control. That's the main idea. That is the main tenet of that theory. However, today we will talk about another theory, which is known as media determinism. And with that, we will also talk about its relevancy with political economy. Although it's not relevant, it's important to discuss the same theory in the same line, like when we discuss critical theory, cultural studies, political economy, Marxism, and then it's important to discuss media determinism in the same continuation. And I'll try to relate it. I mean, it's not connected. However, it is again, I'm trying to maintain sort of continuation because the person who proposed this theory was also influenced by Marx. Let me move to my next slide. Uh, in our today's learning, we are going to talk about this person, Marshall McLuhan. He's especially famous for these two ideas that you see on screen. First idea is the medium is the message or massage. I'll talk about that shortly. And his second idea is very famous. This idea gained famous particularly after internet came into being, after they invented internet. Now I'll stop here to ask you that how many of you are familiar with the idea global village? Just raise your hands, please. How many? Okay, Hassan has heard about this idea. Who else? How many? Wajiha also has heard about this idea. Good. How many of you have heard this idea? Somebody is giving me thumbs up. Not sure who. Dawood maybe also has heard about. He wanted to give a. He wanted to raise hand. Instead, he gave a thumbs up. But all right. So seems like there are a couple of people who have heard about this idea. Even if you do not have a clear understanding, a neat understanding of what does global village mean, can anyone? I mean, can anyone share vague understanding? I mean, I understand that you only vaguely understand what does global village mean, but can anyone talk about that understanding? Global village? Hassan, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, ma'am. ग्लोबल विलेज एक टर्म है, मसलन जिस तरह एक गांव होता है उसमें लोग एक दूसरे को जानते होते हैं, उसकी बहुत ज्यादा आबादी नहीं होती और करीबी एक तरह से लोग रहते होते हैं और एक दूसरे के बारे में मुकम्मल आगाही रखते हैं। इसी तरह ये नजरिया है कि एक दुनिया भी एक अब विलेज बन चुकी है, एक ग्लोबल विलेज हो चुकी है, जिसमें हम जैसे पहले होता था कि कहीं जगह पहुंचना है या कहीं पैगाम पहुंचाना है तो महीने लग जाते थे, अब वो नहीं, एक विलेज की सूरत में हो गई और हम बहुत से मुल्कों के दूर दूर रहने वाले लोगों को अच्छी तरह जानते हैं, उनके कल्चर को समझते हैं और एक विलेज की सूरत में हम अब रह रहे हैं।
Shabash, very good. This was the idea. Hassan is absolutely right, and I am glad that his understanding is very clear. The meaning of this idea, global village, is that because of means of technology, and this technology includes means of communication and means of transportation. Now, world has taken the shape of a village where people can easily stay connected and people easily know what is happening in other parts of world, in other continents, in other countries. I'll explain this idea again when I move to my next slides. But this person, Marshall McLuhan, he is famous for floating this idea global village. Let's move on to next slide. This is Marshall McLuhan, who came up with the idea of global village. McLuhan, the man who coined the term global village even before the internet invention. What's the meaning of coining the term?
Design.
Yeah, he came up with this term. This means he sort of proposed this term. All right. And this is the interesting fact. The last part of the sentence that you see on screen, this describes a very interesting fact that he gave this term global village before even internet was there. Now, McLuhan died in 1980. 1980 was the year when he passed away. And that was the time when TV was very popular, when a telephone and other means of communication, and we had dish antenna, cable news network. They had also invented cable operating systems as well. In that, and he died before internet was invented. Does anyone have any idea when was internet invented? When did they invent internet? Any vague idea? Everyone, please turn on your cameras. I still see many people whose cameras are not on. I would like you all to keep your cameras on all the time, please. And when we run out of time for this session, please join again using the same link. I will do your attendance in the other session. Internet, when was internet invented?
1983.
83, no, not in 80s. Internet was invented in 1990s. If I am not sure, but I'm not sure. I think it was in late 1990s. It was invented by an Irish software engineer. His name was Tim Berners-Lee. I just wrote his name in the chat box. You may want to look him up further. He was an Irish engineer, software scientist, and he came with this idea of World Wide Web. The idea that is commonly known as WWW. He proposed this idea in 1990s that let's make a World Wide Web where people actually can stay connected. Now, here is McLuhan, who is coming up with the idea of internet, coming up with the idea of global village even before the invention of internet, before internet was invented. But still he could see the popularity of media. He could see how people could stay connected through television. What happens in Karachi, let's say 30 minutes ago, you can see this in news bulletin on TV screen, right? Without having the need of going to Karachi physically. Is that correct? What happened in Murray a couple weeks ago, we saw how traffic was blocked because of snowstorm there. None of us went there, none of us, right? Even then we were able to see that through electronic media. Can you raise hands? How many of you saw the TV footage? How many of you? Just raise your hands. How many of you saw your TV footage? Very good. Only 2 people? Seriously?
Ma'am, weren't they using the same videos that were available online?
Ji bete? Sorry? Say it again.
Weren't they using the same videos that were available online, the news channels?
Yes. Majority were, many videos that they were sharing, they were shared to them by people who were there. Like they did not necessarily send their correspondent or reporter. Later they went too, but the first hand information was given to them by people who were there. This is the, I am here trying to explain the idea of global village. McLuhan was he saw the influence of electronic media, and particularly his ideas were related to TV at that time. Of course, he died before internet came, but his ideas became more popular after internet was invented. In the new century, internet became immensely popular in new century, in new millennium. I came to know about Facebook first time in 2007 or 2008, and maybe that was the time when I made my account on internet. Maida, you have raised your hand.
मैम उसी वक्त का रेज्ड है जब आपने कहा था.
All right, maybe it's appearing a little late. Never mind. So the idea of global village that McLuhan proposed, he proposed it on the basis of his experience from TV only. However, soon after internet was invented, his ideas became so popular. I mean, scholars turned turned their attention to his works, that here is a scholar who proposed the idea of global village. And yes, here we see a huge transformation happening after the invention of internet. So this is the man who is behind the idea of global village again. Now, let me tell you his history very briefly. McLuhan was a Canadian scholar. He was a professor of English, by the way. He did not have disciplinary training in the field of communication. He was a professor of English, and he taught at US for a while, and then he moved back to Canada, where he joined University of Toronto, and again he taught English and especially rhetoric for the rest of his life. And he received his education from Cambridge University. But today he's famous with the idea of global village. It was Marshall McLuhan who gave us this term, global village. And in my next slide, I'm showing you another Canadian scholar. His name was Harold Innis. And Harold McLuhan was deeply influenced by Innis' work. Nouris, please turn on your camera and keep it on for the whole time, please. Please do not let me repeat it. In every class, this is understood.
My room, ma'am. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know you were not here with us in the last class. I wanted to go over this information so that people follow the protocols from the next class. McLuhan was deeply influenced by Harold Innis. Usually scholars get influenced from other scholars. Even if I ask you this question, that who has influenced you as a scholar or as an author, you may come up with many names. When I was little, in my childhood days, I was deeply influenced by A. Hamid. A. Hamid is a famous Urdu writer, and his writings would appear in the Sunday magazine of Nawai Waqt. I remember reading his fantasy stories, for example, Ganga ke Pujari Nag and Viran Haveli ka Aseb. I remember reading A. Hamid a lot in my childhood. And when I was a child, I was deeply impressed and influenced by A. Hamid. And as a scholar today, I am deeply influenced by Stuart Hall. Even if I ask you a question that who has influenced you as a scholar, you may come up with names. Let's ask maybe Dawood. Dawood, who are you impressed with? I mean, as a scholar, or who is your favorite? I mean, who has impressed you as a student or as a person?
मैम इस टाइम तो मुझे नाम नहीं आ रहे किसी के भी.
That's okay. If you are interested in poetry, or if you are interested in, sometimes I also like reading children fiction. Sometimes I like reading poetry, not always though, but I mostly read authors like authors who are famous for their prose. So there are many writers who influence us. And in the same way, Marshall McLuhan was highly influenced by Harold Innis. Harold Innis was also a Canadian scholar. He also taught at the University of Toronto. Innis was a political economy theorist. Remember, we learned political economy theory in the last class, and here is the connection. I told you when I began that I'll make a connection with all of this with political economy theory. Political economy theorists, they see that those who have economic power, they can have social control. And this person, Harold Innis, was a political economy theorist. He is famous for his book. I'm going to write the name of his book in the chat box. The Bias of Communication. You know what he suggested? He suggested that those who control means of communication can also exercise control. Let's take the example of Hollywood. Hollywood enjoyed its hegemony over international media landscape for a really long time. So that was a dominant media, and they also exercise social control. Like they would and same thing we are seeing happening with technology companies like Facebook, Twitter, even Apple and Google. They also exercise social control because they are powerful economic, they are controlled by powerful people, and they are controlled by people who are financially powerful. So he proposed the idea that this is a bias of communication, that those who control fancy technologies, they can also control people socially, they can also control social structure. And this is how he suggested the title for his book, The Bias of Communication. So McLuhan, he drew his ideas from Innes, Marshall McLuhan. He developed his ideas, let me go to my last slide, from Innes, but then deviated a little. What is the meaning of deviation? I explained this in my last class. Deviation, to go in a different direction. This is deviation means to think differently. Earlier, McLuhan was influenced by Innes. However, later he started thinking in another direction. And this is McLuhan's critical question. McLuhan asked this question: was it possible that media could transform our sensory experiences and our social order? Let me explain first sensory experiences. Sensory is something that is related to our senses. All right. So I am going to give you two examples, and now you will tell me which one seems to be more pleasing to our senses. Usman, Ghani, and Basam, please turn on your camera so that I can see that you are actually here. All right. The
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
Thank you, Basam. Usman, you as well. Usman Ghani. Basam, now you will answer this question. I am sharing a situation with you in which we will make comparison. Situation A is you are given a story, a news story related to commencement at FC College, and you are asked to read it. The story also has pictures. And second situation, you are shown a video related to FC College commencement ceremony. Now, which situation is more pleasing to your senses? Situation 1 or situation 2?
Ma'am, situation 1.
When you are asked to read, reading
Yes,
is
ma'am.
more pleasing than seeing for you.
मैम रीडिंग इज इजी, मतलब कि आप वो आप ऑन, मतलब कि वीडियो जो होगी वो पीछे, मतलब आपको घर बैठ के देखना पड़ेगा ना मेरे ख्याल से, और कमेंसमेंट जो आप कह रही हैं रीडिंग, वो ऑन इवेंट होगी.
No, nobody is asking you to come to campus. You are at
Okay,
home.
ma'am.
You are
Yes, ma'am.
consider yourself that you are in the comfort of your home. And
Yes,
which information would be easy for your senses to process, to see a video or to read from paper?
To see a video. To see a video.
Video. This is
Yes,
what
ma'am.
McLuhan said, that media can transform our sensory experiences. Of course, he's talking about electronic media. Electronic media, the messages that come from electronic media are more appealing to our sensory organs as compared to print media. And I'll talk about social order in a minute. Let me go to my next slide. I'll talk about social order here. One of important proclamations of McLuhan. I explained this word. The word proclamation comes from the word proclaim. And I discussed this word in my last lecture. Yashva, do you remember what is the meaning of proclamate, to proclaim?
I do know what proclaim means, but I don't really know how to explain it.
That's okay. What's your understanding about this word? What is proclaim? What is to proclaim?
I'm not very good with explaining meanings, but I don't know. I could use it in a sentence.
That's okay. Proclaim simply means to claim. Ji Munisa, you raised your hand. Go ahead. Yes, dawa karna. When somebody claims something. Very good. Hassan wrote it in the chat box. Thank you, Hassan. So the word proclamation comes from proclaim. That's what McLuhan proclaimed. He proclaimed that medium is the message, and sometimes massage. Let me explain first what he means by message, and then I'll talk about massage as well. McLuhan meant that sometimes it's the medium that determines our understanding, not the content. All right. So I just asked this question from Basam, that which message will be more understandable for him, reading or seeing? And he said seeing. Right, Basam?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Basam said that seeing a message will be more appealing and comprehensive as compared to just reading. So it's the medium that is facilitating the message. For McLuhan, it's the medium that determines our understanding, that determines content. Let me go back to slide when I began. That's why he used the word media determinism. It's media is plural of medium. I am communicating to you through the medium of internet. Medium is actually a channel that is helping us to connect to each other, to communicate to each other. So all right, if instead of doing this online session, if I write my lecture in the form of an essay, I am sure that will not be appealing to your senses as this video messages. That's what McLuhan meant. And I have explained this further here. By this proclamation, McLuhan meant that technology determines our experiences. It's the technology that determines our understanding, our behavior, and everything. And massage, I said that I'll explain this later. Massage means, I mean, the dictionary meaning of this word is to rub. So for example, if we are feeling tired after a long walk, we may want to get a massage of our feet to relieve the pain. However, the massage here means manipulation. It's the medium that actually tends to manipulate your choices. And I'll go back to my last slide because I said that I'll explain social order. It's the medium that actually determines how we live. Now, let me explain this with an example. And I'll ask you to come up with same examples. By the way, you all are familiar with Disney, famous company Walt Disney. They are especially famous for their animated movies. I mean, who would say that they do not know Disney, the creators of Cinderella and Snow White and Sleeping Beauty? Recently, Disney released a movie. Its name is Encanto. Has anyone heard about it?
Yes, ma'am. I've watched it.
Who said this? Nuris? Nuris, you watched it? Very good. Maybe now you can relate the experience with the experience that I recently had. Do you know, Nuris, when they released this movie? When did they do this?
2020, I think.
This year?
2021?
I mean, in January or last year, December?
Last year, I think. December. December se bhi pehle, ma'am.
Yeah, it's been a month or maybe a little more than a month, right? So not long ago. So my children who are especially my daughter who is 11-year-old, she badly wanted to see this movie. She is a big fan of Disney animated movies. So I went to buy a CD on Tansen. Tansen was a shop, a CD shop in Main Market. Maybe some of you know about that shop. I shopped with Tansen for about 10 years when my daughter was only 1 year old, and I would buy all animated movies for my children from Tansen. So I went to buy that movie to Tansen, and I was surprised that the shop got closed recently. So for 15 minutes, I was circling in the Main Market area, knowing about if they were displaced, or if they moved to another place. So I got their number, and I called this guy who used to run that shop, and I asked him, and he said that people were not buying CDs. So ultimately, they closed down their business. And he told me about Shahzad DVD shop. They had branches in the city. They have a chain in DHA Lahore, and they have another chain at Model Town Link Road. And when I went to that shop, I was told that instead of, now nobody buys CDs. Instead of buying CD, you can buy a link. By the way, how did you watch movie, Nouris? How did you
I
access?
watched it movies and or 1, 2, 3 movies, I think.
Sorry, how did you access?
I watched it on a link called F Movies or 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, on a link. Yeah. So that man, he still sells the CD. He gave us a CD anyway. He said, but next time if you want to buy anything, better come with a USB, and we can share the link, or we can give you the file. This is how it goes now. So see, with the development of technology, electronic media has transformed social order. Now, earlier people would buy CDs, which were compact discs. However, nowadays we get subscription of maybe Netflix, or subscription of Amazon Prime, or subscription of Hulu. All of these are movie streaming, film streaming channels. So it's the technology that determines our experience. That's what he meant when McLuhan was talking about the idea, the medium is the message. I'll stop my lecture here to take your questions if you have any, and to let you share experiences, similar experiences. Technology is changing rapidly. By rapidly, I mean Netflix has seriously challenged the concept of cinema houses. So I mean, nobody needs to go to cinema house. I mean, think about world's biggest film providers, movie video providers, and they do not have a they do not have a cinema house. They do not own cinema houses. Similarly, I mean, when we talk about Amazon, think about world's largest selling company that possibly does not have inventories. They do everything online. So again, it's technology that is determining our experiences. And that is why we say it, that is why we talk about media determinism. It's the media, it's the medium through which information is getting to us that determines our experience. It's the whole issue of media determinism that McLuhan came up with. All right, I have already spoken a lot. Your thoughts? I am not moving ahead with my lecture. I'll continue this debate in my next class. However, your thoughts on it? Ji, was it understandable? Was
Yes,
it?
ma'am.
Did you understand what I explained for today's lecture?
Yes,
Was it?
ma'am. It's a kind of an evolution that we progress with time. मतलब अब जैसे for example पहले VCR से फिर DVD आ गए, DVD अब
Yes.
खत्म हो गया तो इनके पे links वगैरह आ रहे हैं. So I think it's just part of life.
Yes.
After the internet, they'd probably be something else.
Very good, Nouris. I am glad you brought up the idea of VCRs. Yashpa, just a minute. I'll take your comment as well. Do you remember, does anyone remember the time of VCRs, video cassette recorders? I remember that time. And
I have a very vague memory of it.
you have a vague, yeah, I do too. But I remember we would go to buy cassettes, video cassettes. Not buy them, we would rent them. There would be shops from where you could rent video cassettes. So okay, was that more, I mean, now technology has advanced to a level that you do not need to go anywhere. You just get the subscription and you get the service at your doorstep. So this is how technology, this is how give me a minute, this is how technology has changed our experience. I mean, that doesn't demand your physical presence. You just get the subscription and you have access. Yashva, go ahead please.
I was just adding on to Nouris's comment that at first we used to have VCRs that were burnt into CDs, and then CDs were burnt into USBs, and now we have subscription services and Netflix. And there's a study that says by 2035, we're
Yeah.
going to stop going to offices and universities, and everything will be just in virtual reality.
Yeah.
So technology is like ever evolving, and there is
Yeah,
a
but-
chance that we're going to stop even interacting with the people that we interact with right now.
Yeah.
So just that.
Yeah, I know there. Thank you for adding this. There is a lot of debate happening on virtual presence, and I mean, she talked about CDs and also CDs and how technology has evolved. I remember when in my student days, when I was an undergrad, when I was in my undergrad at Lahore College, they didn't have USBs. At that time, you would create your assignment and we would save it on a floppy disk. There used to be a floppy disk. And I lived in hostel. I saved my assignment on floppy disk and I brought it back to my room and I put it next to my table lamp. And it got, I don't know, it was hot. I'm talking about summer. And the table lamp was on and it was also hot, and something happened to that floppy and all my assignment, all my work was gone. And I still remember that time, how hard it was to for us to, and many times even floppy would get corrupted if your hands are sweaty and you don't hold the floppy disk the right way, sweat gets in and dirt gets in and it would get corrupted and it won't work on computer won't read it simply. So we used to be very careful with the handling of those floppy disks, and then came the time of CDs, and now we have passed that stage. We are now with USBs, and even we are passing that stage really quickly because everything is coming online. Like Yashva just said, I mean, we are getting digitized with a really high speed. What did you write, Hassan? I'm sorry. Did my teacher accept my excuse? I didn't go with any excuse. I managed to redo my assignment before the deadline. That was difficult. That was really rough. I remember that. But I didn't have to go with an excuse. But that was, I mean, we went through those sort of experiences. Thank you for asking that question. So to repeat, McLuhan was deviated from the time is running out. This session will end in 2 minutes. Please come back joining the same link so that I can do your attendance. So the person from whom McLuhan was inspired, this person, he had trouble with power of technology, power of media. He came with this idea that there is inherent bias in communication, that those who own better means of communication or those who own technology will always have the upper hand. McLuhan deviated in the sense, here I talked about the idea of deviation. McLuhan deviated in the sense that he was not troubled with the idea of superiority or upper hand or exploitation. he just talked about this idea that it's the technology that is going to determine our surroundings, our social order, our social culture in future. That was his idea. And that is how he deviated. And this is why we are discussing it right after political economy theory, because this man, Marshall McLuhan, he was influenced from one of the very important political economy theorists, and his name was Harold Innis. But I am ending this session now, and I request, I have 16 people right now. I request you all to rejoin me. I cannot do your attendance now because if I do, I'll run out of time. And I have already recorded this session. I'll upload it on Moodle as well. Thank you. I'll see you shortly.